just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to, I think it's our second Q&A for this year.
Yes, it is.
Wow. We never usually do. I mean, overall, since literally beginning this, we might have done 4 or 5 QAs, as in like since I started 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I think the last one we did was the first one in a couple of years.
Yeah. So, yeah, look, I tell you what, the second QA this year, what's crazy is on my Facebook memories came up, and I've been doing podcasts for over 10 years. And that doesn't include all the build up to the first podcast. So that was episode 3 that came up. So more than 10 years. And that doesn't include, I remember when I first started, I had the idea, was sitting on it for, honestly, from idea to actually the first episode, it was like probably 2 years. Like probably 2 years, because just take you build the courage up. Anyway, and then I remember I got all the way to the point of, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put everything on a credit card because, you know, back then I had no money. You're in a mature age apprenticeship. And put everything on the credit card, got all the stuff. And this shows you just how journeys aren't always, you know, just like that. And let it sit there for like 6 months because I was too like once you start, that's it. Yeah. And also like just nervous about it all. You gotta remember, like, no one knew what a podcast was then. And so that it sat in my lounge room. So I'd gone and spent like $7,000 to $8,000 on a credit card I couldn't afford, and it was just sitting there in my lounge room, and I hadn't started. Got all this stuff made up, and sat on it for so long, and eventually built up the courage to start. And then obviously that was a decade ago.
It's funny that you say 10 years ago because I think I've said this before, but it's quite a full circle moment that I started the Blues in January 2016, and in my first week I had to go meet Brad Fittler.
Yep.
And on the way to that, I listened to your interview with him I don't know, I was so nervous about meeting him, so I just wanted to listen to an interview. And I think that was the first one I listened to. So that was January 2016. So that's 9.5 years ago.
Wow, that's insane. Man, and what's crazy is that Brad Fittler interview, I had to take it down because it had all these audio issues throughout it. You might not have. Back then, you probably, you know what, you wouldn't have noticed it because we were so used to shit quality that
it was just sweet.
This is like, oh, this is what it is. But it was so bad quality. Like, it was so bad. But yeah, like I would never forget Freddie Fittler agreeing to come on the potty. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I think I connected via Facebook or something.
He used to have Instagram. He used to be pretty
this
active.
Was before Instagram.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, this is way before Instagram. This is 2000 as in before I was on Instagram. I only got on Instagram like 2018.
Oh, well, there you go.
17,
yeah, it must
maybe
have been
17.
Facebook. Yeah.
So this is way before that. I was Facebook. And this is why, like, at the height of, you know, everyone having a crack at Freddie and speaking really negative about me. Don't get me wrong, I still had my opinion that I felt it was time for him to move on. But it was just hard to hear so much negative talk about Brad Fittler because unless, like, he were talking about Freddie Fittler, one of the greatest players in the history of the game, getting messaged by a no-name nobody, asking to come on a podcast in a hotel room. Think about how bizarre that is. Back then when you don't even know what podcast is. So Freddie Fittler, he's sitting there just going, here is a fellow NRL player that he must have remembered me, probably while he was commentating. I am just purely going there to help him out. Like, I'm just going there to help this guy out. Didn't even know what it was for. Like, obviously things have changed. That would never happen these days because of how big media is and everything and all these contracts. But he just went there, you know, just went, yep, sweet, no worries, rocked up. I was so nervous. That was probably the first, one of the first ones where I was like really, really nervous. And that was why, like, when you speak about it, you've always got to be giving your opinion. But that's why sometimes it's just like, you still give it, but it's so hard to see such hyper negative talk about Freddie after everything he's done. And that's still my stance. Like, you know, I think we were actually one of the first kind of media places to kind of say, I believe it's time for Freddie to move on from Origin. But my stance was some of the hyperbolic nonsense around Freddie when he was coaching is ridiculous. Like, it was, yes, okay, some of his coaching decisions totally disagreed with, and we disagreed with it at the time. But some of the vitriol, I was like, are you forgetting what this bloke has done for New South Wales and the way you're speaking about him like he's just some clown? And it never sat well with me. And that's why I always make it a point to bring up his impact to what New South Wales are currently experiencing. I know you guys lost game 2. I get all that. But you got a bunch of 25-year-olds that have a bunch of New South Wales Origin experience that Freddie took a risk on early in his career, that everyone called him crazy. Remember the first series when he debuted? It was 11 players?
It was 11 players at the MCG.
Everyone called him crazy, correct?
Yeah.
You were in the camp with
I was there. I'll never forget because people called him crazy his whole bloody coaching career. And that was the first one. The second one was in 2019 when he dropped Latrell. Jack Whiten threw the intercept, but he promoted him to 5'8", and everyone called him crazy then. That's when Turbo came back. And I remember, Blues won by 30, 32. It was over in Perth. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, everyone called you crazy. And he's just like, oh, did they?
Yeah, he's just so disconnected from it all, which is good, is what you want to be. You don't want to be affected by, people that aren't in it. And as I said, that's you can be critical of some of Freddie's decision, especially in the back end, while still also appreciating what he did for the Blues. And also, that's what we're talking, that's just his New South Wales Origin head coaching role. We're not even talking about all the pathways that he helped essentially create, didn't he?
Yeah.
The junior system.
Yeah.
So not the junior system, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, basically, the New South Wales Pathways was introduced, as it is now, in about, I think it's 2015, and I think he took it after he got knocked back the first time for Laurie, 2013. And there was a while there where he coached the 16s and 18s, and they went undefeated for a few years.
And that's a decade ago. All those guys, well, not all of them, but a lot of them are currently in Origin.
Well, I remember I was in camp when I was interviewing him when he called Lomax the gifted one, and he was an under 18 at that point. Bradman Best was there, Cam Murray was there, Payne Haas was there. Wow. That under 16s team, I think they won 26-0 up in Brisbane in 2016. Pappenhausen played, Lomax played, Cam Murray played, Payne Haas played. Payne Haas played off the bench. It was
that is crazy.
Yeah,
maybe he was a year younger because that's insane.
I think he was. Yeah,
he probably was.
I think he was a year young.
And so I've just always got admiration for Freddie and what he's done. And I think that, we're so quick to be black and white in rugby league where it's like you're either the best ever or you're the worst ever. And it, like anything, the truth is somewhere, not even in the middle, that, you can hold two things to be true. You can disagree with certain decisions and say, okay, maybe it is time to move forward, whilst also appreciating the foundation that he's laid for the current. And look, as I said, it's coming off a loss. So I know people go, oh, hang on, it's not as dominant as you would say. I think everyone can agree. On paper, this New South Wales side has the chance to at least win three on the trot. I know they've still got to win this one, and it's going to be an absolute dogfight. But on paper, when you look at both sides and about who should be dominant over the next 5 years, it's the side with 25-year-olds that are actually absolutely thriving right now. Whereas Queensland have, a lot of Val's older, Munster's older, DC's had to be forced to move on. We've got a lot of forwards that are pretty good, but they're not setting the world alight, and Freddie has a lot to do with that. And again, you can give Freddie credit for the foundation, which doesn't mean you have to take away from what Loz is doing and what Bellamy's doing. So yeah, I'll never forget just being good like that. I'll never forget Paul Gallen had quite a while ago. I remember he told me a story about, I think he strapped nappies to his broken rib or something like that when he was super young. And just destined, with Gal, he is one of the toughest sportsmen in the history of this country. I don't care what anyone says.
Oh, of course.
He is so, I'll never forget the toughness he showed by going up against Justice Hooney, who just recently, was winning a world-class fight all the way to the 10th round, I think, and then got knocked down, and there was a short count. They should do the rematch for sure. But he went 12 rounds, I think, or 11 rounds with one of the best young heavyweights this country's ever seen, and his pure grit got him through it. Just didn't quit. And it was just, the mismatch was incredible. And so you could say so tough it was stupid, but at the end of the day, he chose to get in there. There's one of the toughest things I've ever seen. Paul Gallen, he played 80 minutes in the middle of 80 minutes in the middle in Origin in 2011. Mental.
People don't play 80 minutes in Origin now.
Yeah.
And that was 14 years ago.
Yeah. Or if they do now, you're like, you're still impressed by it, whereas this is all that time ago. Alrighty, guys, this Q&A is brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. Right now, Grumpy Coffee is 30% off everything, and that sale ends this Friday. I didn't say anything yesterday on Monday because that's our biggest show, and if everything sells out, you don't get it. I said it today. It's for our diehards, so make sure, get in there. The sale ends this Friday. It is 30% off all of our products. I think it's the biggest ever sale we've done with Grumpy Coffee. We've got pods, whole bean ground, it all. Once you go Grumpy Coffee, you will not go back. Make sure to get in before we sell out, guys. It ends this Friday. Bloke Club, guys, don't forget Luke Camilleri. For a special price this end of financial year, message LDC_01. Mention Bloke. He'll give you a special discount, and we'll be drawing the Mazda BT50 to one lucky Bloke Club member very soon. Make sure to join at www.bloke.club. No strings attached. You can leave any time. It's super easy. It takes you literally 2 seconds to join, and we do prizes every single month. A massive thank you to Aspley Mazda. Okay, first question. Who are your 3 favourite bench players from any team? Now, does that mean from a specific team or across
No,
one
just
from
like
each?
just any
Okay.
three bench players in the comp.
Well, I mean, let's just assume we're going to consider Connor Watson a bench player,
Yeah.
even though he's not. But yeah, Connor Watson. I think Dylan Walker, and trying to think, Connor Watson, Dylan Walker. Well, Spencer Lenny, when he's at his best, is like literally can totally change a game.
Well, you could argue there's no one like him in the comp.
Really, the closest to it is Cheese when he's at the Storm.
But even so, like they're still very different.
Yeah, well, but it's all about quick play the balls,
Yeah.
winning contact. I think Spencer Lenny was unique because he's so violent
So
about
aggressive,
it. Yeah,
yeah.
so aggressive. I'll tell you what, Cheese off the bench though is like if he goes to Rabbitohs and comes off the bench, he'll go back to essentially being the best bench player in the
Do you
competition.
know what's crazy? Like I got South tattooed on me, and I still keep forgetting that Cheese is here.
I know, it's
It just
crazy.
hasn't sunk in yet.
I know. When you see him in that jersey, you're just going to be like,
Yeah.
oh man, I can't wait for those quick play the balls.
Yeah.
So yeah, Connor Watson, Dylan Walker, and I'll say Cheese or Spencer Lenny.
Yeah, nice.
I know Cheese hasn't played for a bit, but mate, you go back and when Harry Grant and him were on the same side, it was almost a cheat code. And that's actually the year where the Storm scored the most points, I think, in the history of the modern era, or at least like close. I think they equaled or something along those lines. 2021.
Yeah.
I know the rules changed and everything like that, but they were just unstoppable.
Them getting knocked out in the prelim makes people forget how dominant they were
know.
that year. They equaled the record for most wins in a row.
19 on the trot, I think it
Yeah.
was.
And because Penrith knocked them out of the prelim, and people forget this. I remember Hello Sport was streaming here, and South versus Manly was the first prelim, and Storm versus Panthers was the next prelim, and that was really the grand final. They were the best two teams. I don't know. Oh yeah, Penrith lost week 1 to South, so they were on the same side
Yep.
of the draw. I'll never forget. Dave, their old producer, who's a Storm fan, was like, "Oh, Souths are going to be playing Storm in the grand final." Like everyone thought Storm were going to win, like we're going to walk through that
Yeah.
game. That was a huge upset that
Yeah.
Penrith won, and people just don't remember that.
Yeah, because like Penrith have been, you know what it's similar to? It's similar to the Queensland 8 in a row. We just think they walked out, dominated every
Yeah.
game, and like when you actually go back to it, there's every series except for one is 2-1, and
Yeah.
it's like lost by 2 points.
Exactly right.
And it's like Penrith, like I'll never ever forget the game at home against Para Eels. And did the trainer come on or something like that and ruin some kind of momentum or whatever? Like,
Yeah, I remember that.
They've had some, like, honestly, life or death close calls in prelims or finals games before.
And Critter is sniffing around all of them basically.
Yeah, literally all of them. And so obviously, you know, of course, it's so dominant. We all should say it's dominant. But like, if you go back and watch these games, you're going to be like, oh my God, like they were one play, whether it's a 50-50 call, a bounce of the ball, from everything just changing. Everything changing. A Critter play. So yeah, that's...
Well, 3 of their 4 grand finals, they won by 6 or less. Yeah, that's pretty sure. Maybe, could even be... No, last year was 6, yeah, because the first one was 2 points. Bronx one was 4, I think, maybe 2. And then, yeah, last year I think it was 6.
I got to say, and I you know, hate to sound like a hater, last year's grand final, I'm not going to remember it as some crazy good game. And I think maybe because obviously I've got my Broncos bias, and if anything, that bias should actually make me hate that grand final. Look at all these excuses as to why it was so bad. But I just think that 23 grand final was so friggin' unbelievable that it's kind of like jogged my kind of expectation of a grand final.
Well, I remember after 2015, when I watched the 2016 grand final, and I thought, and I know it's not the same, 2016 was way better than last year, but I remember thinking, oh, pretty boring, even though
in the end,
clearly
it
wasn't.
Yeah.
And then with the benefit of time and hindsight, you realise that was actually an epic in itself. I don't think last year's going to be. It was a tough, gritty grand final, but it was pretty
a
uneventful.
super gritty grand final, but you know, and I actually think at the time there was a bit of talk about how it wasn't that exciting, but like at the same time it was super, super gritty, and like it was still enjoyable. Like I still liked it, but I can understand why a wider audience might have been a bit, you know, bored by it to a degree, because you've got to love rugby league to have loved last year's grand final, because it was honestly, it was just pure mental toughness. Who's going to blink first? That's what it was.
Like I can recite every try score like that from 23, but I'd have to really, really deeply think about last year's already, and that's a year
crazy.
later.
That's I mean, I've got Harry Grant diving over. I think Liam Martin with a kick or something like that, something along those lines.
And Howarth, he either scored or he didn't score. That was a controversial.
Oh, it was a huge controversy. He didn't score. I think I thought he did score. Anyway, you know what? Speaking of that, Origin, I've got to admit, and I actually have people have gotten upset with me with this. I think, yes, last game 2 was exciting, like that comeback and everything like that. But I actually think this is one of the lowest standards of rugby league in Origin we've seen in a very long time.
I completely agree.
And I know people, are going to get upset. It's just my opinion. It doesn't mean I'm right. But seriously, that's just how I feel. I feel like the standard of rugby league in this Origin has probably been the worst we've seen in quite a while.
We'll put it this way, and we've talked about the refs enough, so let's put that away for a second. In game 2, the reason Queensland were ahead by so much is because New South Wales kept dropping the ball. In the second half, the reason New South Wales were able to come back is because every time Queensland were trying to get out of trouble, they kept dropping the ball.
Yeah.
It wasn't an end-to-end grind.
Yeah, and I think there was a guy a few weeks ago that commented on, maybe it was last week, that referee decisions don't have anything to do with it because there's other games that have had 15 penalties that have been good or at least like solid. And to a degree, I think, yeah, maybe it's definitely a reasonable take, but I would say it matters when and what the penalties are, I think, that can suck the life out of a game. And maybe, maybe game 2, you could argue, okay, yes, those are all, that 9 penalties, they were all penalties, but I don't think New South Wales are angry at the fact that they were penalties. They're angry at the fact that so Queensland was perfect.
Yeah, the Queensland got no penalties.
Yeah. I think also game 1, I do think, game 2, you could say there's an argument that, okay, maybe, definitely game 2, you could say there's a reason why it's not the ref's fault the game was so poor because of the completion rate from both teams in either half. But I think game 1, definitely, the Origin was refed out of it. If you're given penalties in the first set for hand on face, that's where I go, you are refereeing the Origin out of the game.
Yeah, I'm with you. There was 3 penalties in the first, I think, 5 minutes that were all like barely club penalties. And then Lomax put someone on his head, or maybe it was the other way around, and it's not given, and you're just like, what's doing?
Yeah, well, and I think that if you're going to give penalties for that, what's hilarious? A few weeks later, I'm watching Ashley Klein, and he is literally looking at hand on face in a club game, doesn't give the penalty, and I'm just going, bruh, come on, man. And so anyway, I think he's probably right for game 2 that it wasn't the reffing that made it a bad game. It was the players' standard of rugby league that did. If you actually look at the completion rate, it was like at one stage it was like 55% for New South Wales.
Oh, it was horrendous.
And the second half for Queensland was like disgraceful.
It was just as bad, yeah.
But so I think he's probably got a point there. I think game 1 though, I'm pretty solid on my opinion that no, I felt like Origin was refed out of that game.
It felt like a club game. Like it was like not the players doing like. I think Queensland in game 1 were a 4 out of 10, and I reckon New South Wales might have been a 6.
Yeah,
but still, like it was so stop-start that they couldn't do anything.
Well, the good thing about Origin is it's usually that first 15 minutes where it's just like there's no break, and you're just like, oh my god. But anyway, what I will say is that and I know there's we have majority New South Wales listeners, so they're going to get pissed off when I say this. But if you ever wanted an example of how dominant New South Wales media are in rugby league, this blow up about the penalties is the perfect example because there's been all this talk about, I can't believe the ref gave all these penalties in a row. When New South Wales won game 2 last year, there was, I think it was 7 in a row New South Wales got. There wasn't a peep about penalties from the wider audience. Now, maybe you can find some articles in Queensland or whatever, but it wasn't the main headline that came out of the game, and it's been spoken about ad nauseum since then.
Yeah, well, it's been a week and people are still talking about it.
And it just shows you, and look, it only makes sense that New South Wales dominate the media because it's a way bigger state. We have way more teams. All the focus, our headquarters in New South Wales, I get it. But it's just a really good example. We've got some of our biggest analysts in the game shocked at the game 2 penalties as if this has never happened before. And it happened last year in game 2. Yeah. How do you think I knew how to predict that would happen? Because it happened to us in game 2 last year. And so, I know it's it's going to piss off New South Wales fans, and it's not even a negative or a positive. It's just a fact. Like, New South Wales media dominate the narrative usually in rugby league.
I don't think it's going to piss off New South Wales fans because, of any reffing thing. I think it's going to piss off New South Wales fans because deep down they know it's true. And that's why it pissed me off as well.
Well, I tell you why it's also true. Because look at the 8 in a row. If New South Wales didn't dominate the narrative in rugby league, there's no way that every year the Blues would go in as favourites. But it's because you have this huge state that their opinion is much louder than a smaller state. And so you're going in, whereas if it was vice versa, Like, let's say New South Wales win 8 in a row. Like, mate, Origin would be almost dead.
Yeah.
Like, and Queensland would never go into a game favourite. Like, imagine, like, you guys won game 1, it was already dynasty talks. Like, genuinely dynasty talks.
It's crazy.
And I'm not saying that to have a crack at you. I'm just saying, like, that's New South Wales dominate it is what it is. At the end of the day, whether, you know, you like to admit it or not, this game, the initial growth of it was New South Wales Rugby League. Like, that's just the way it is. And then it turned into the NRL, obviously, eventually. But it's just a fact. Just a fact.
And also, like, I think, I can't remember who told me this, but when I was working at the Blues, I was told, like, the biggest ratings were, like, game ones. Like, Origin took a little bit of a dip in the late 2000s. Late 2010s. It's obviously way back up now. But I think, like, game 1 2013, game 1 2014 were, like, two of the biggest ratings. And Queensland had won 8 series in a row, 7 series in a row. And, like, it's just crazy how it works. Like, Origin, it burns me to say, Origin is going better holistically when Queensland are winning.
Yeah, because if you guys got dominant, you just tune out. Like, you just be like, we don't need to play. I'll never forget I think it was when you nearly went 3 in a row, early 2000s.
Yeah,
there was talk of, like, this concept is becoming a bit of you know,
early 2000s. Yeah.
But yeah, look, it's as I said, it's neither a positive or a negative. It just, in my opinion, it just is. But
I was listening to the Grade Cricketer after Origin. I can't remember which Origin it was. I think it was Origin 1 actually. And they were like, if Queensland are up 14-0 at halftime, the stadium's buzzing, everyone's up and about, blah, blah, blah. If New South Wales are up 14-0 at halftime, Origin's dead.
it's true. They're so witty. They're so witty, so good at what they do. Okay, guys, if you're new to KO Sports, you can get your first month free for you can get your first month for $1. So first month for $1. Yep, just $1. Link for this deal in the description, and the offer ends June 30, so it's nearly going. Trust me, guys, do not. I'll be honest, the amount of times I've asked KO for a special deal for our listeners, and they've just been like, bro, we just can't. We just can't. This is the first time where they're going, all right, here you go. Guys, use this friggin' link in the show notes. Use the link. Use this deal. $1 for the first month. Okay. If you had the final say in choosing the 20th NRL team's location, where would you put it? Okay, so we've got Perth, PNG. I'll be honest, initially I was like, and look, I don't want to poo-poo Perth because it's already happening. I get all that. But after, I think it was Benny Eichen, listening to him talk about the Western Corridor, I think it's called, of Brisbane, thinking of that and thinking of how much money the AFL are putting into that area of Queensland, I think we might have missed a trick. And I think that the Perth battle, the way I see it is this, just purely from kind of just breaking it all down. The Perth battle is a 20-year battle. Like, it is maybe a 30-year battle. It might even be a 50-year battle. Seriously, a friggin' 50-year battle. I mean, look how long it's taken Melbourne to get a foothold in Victoria, and they've had to be the best team in the comp for 25 years. And so we'll just say a 30-year battle of success to get even a foothold in Perth. You can already see the media's against us. I get it. Us versus them. We do the same to AFL. It's the way of the world. But what I think of it logically, and I'm like, okay, we could get a quick win in Western Brisbane or Brisbane West like that. We've got all the juniors, all the clubs ready to go. The finance is there, to my understanding. And if you put a club in 2027 in Brisbane's West, of the west of Brisbane, AFL's done. It's over. Like, AFL in Queensland is essentially, it's a knife in the heart. I just don't know how they can come back from that. And so what I'm not understanding with the logic of it all is we could win that battle in a year. Like 12 months, it's over. With Perth, what's the difference between winning it in 30 years' time or 33 years' time? Because, like, let's say we go, the next team was in west of Brisbane, and it was in 2027 when it's coming in. Let's say the next Perth team came in 2031. I'll just say 31. Yeah. Let's say it's going to take till 2060 to win. What's the difference between 2060 and 63? But I'll tell you what the difference is between us introducing Brisbane in 2031 compared to 27. It's 4 years of millions of dollars being poured in. This is how much AFL are aggressively attacking Queensland. I think they have a staff of like 40 or 50 just in Queensland alone. Queensland, I mean, NRL, to my understanding, do not have any staff in Queensland as a head base. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but our head office is run like a skeleton crew compared to AFL. The money these guys are pouring into this stuff, you go speak to a lot of these schools and that, AFL goes straight in there and they go, what do you want? What do you need for sporting gear with how hard it is to get money and resources in schools? And AFL just go, boom, 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 whatever you need. And all of a sudden, they're an AFL school. And that's where I go, we might have missed a trick because in 3 years' time, the west of Brisbane could look totally different. Where I'll tell you this for a fact, Perth is not looking any different in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
Any different. So I'm just not understanding the logic of it all.
I think it has to be Brisbane. And I didn't think that until I heard Shane Richardson talk about it. This was a couple of years ago before he went to the Tigers. He talked about how, I can't remember what the club was called. There was a few of them who pitched for the Dolphins.
He was Tigers, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, East Tigers, yeah. And he explained as well, probably the same as Ben Eichen, like there's so many clubs there already. There's pathways, like they're ready to go. Like they could
look at Redcliffe.
Exactly. Look, like it is a perfect case study, the Dolphins. I don't know if the NRL are ready to take on another huge project and put it in New Zealand. I don't think it's a home to lock that, what is it, the Western Corridor up?
Yeah, I think it's Western Corridor.
Yeah.
Geography is not my strong suit.
Yeah, me too. It's rugby league mad there. It just is, and it always has been.
You got
and
guys
I don't
like
know if it
Alfie, Kevy, all those guys are from...
Exactly, and to have a team for people who represent them would be amazing, and it seems like it can be done very quickly. So
well,
I
you
think
got Ipswich Jets there.
Exactly.
That are a famous club in Queensland that is ready to go. Boom, you know.
Yeah, the money's there, the pathways are there, the club's already, like it's just...
The Brisbane Jets.
Yeah.
Sick name.
Yeah.
Sick name. Like, what? That is actually a fucking sick name, Brisbane Jets.
And I think as well, like, we want to expand, but we are so strong in New South Wales and Queensland. We have, like, it's our own backyard. We have to capitalise on all of that first. Obviously, there's no more room in New South Wales, but we've only got, 4 teams in Queensland at the moment.
Yeah, and look how big the state is.
Yeah.
So, like, look... And I've said this on Morning Glory, and I've said this maybe not on our podcast because we don't actually have that much time to speak about all this kind of stuff. But that's a funny thing about the Monday show. We actually don't spend that much time on all the drama around rugby league.
Very little, yeah.
Because we can't afford to because we've got so many games to get through.
Yeah.
And so that's, yeah. Anyway, so we haven't really spoken about it on that. We've spoken about Morning Glory. I want Perth to kill it. I really do. But I'm super worried about it. Like I am, you know how hard it is to start something from nothing? Like, bro, it is the heart. Like starting a business is like there's a reason why most businesses fail. There is a reason.
Melbourne was a miracle. Melbourne Storm.
Melbourne, look, imagine this. Let's say Melbourne aren't the best team in the comp. They'd probably be bust, honestly. Or you'd have to look at the Gold Coast Titans at the moment.
Yep.
In rugby league heartland, on the beautiful Gold Coast, it can't be a better place to find. Got superstars that go there. They've got like 4 or 5 guys that have either played Origin or are currently playing Origin, and they can barely get people to the ground. Like sometimes it's like 5 to 10,000 or something like that, or maybe 10,000. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh. And that's on like if you could design a place to put a professional franchise, like the Gold Coast couldn't be any better. It's usually sunny, warm days to go to the games. It's easy as anything to attract players there, almost too easy probably. Anyway, so I understand the push for the South Island because like the thing with the South Island of New Zealand, when you have the Warriors versus Christchurch or whoever, it would be North versus South. So it would be a North versus South Island clash. Honestly, like saying it'd be close to Origin is hyperbolic, but it would be a smaller version of that, of North versus South Island. However, I just worry that, like, for example, it's taken this long, 2023, for the first time the Warriors to have all the way from juniors up to the top. And just when they're starting to get some kind of prevalence in the NRL, and I know they've made grand finals before, but just consistent prevalence with gun juniors, and they've done it all themselves. So the NRL, to my understanding, and apologies if I'm wrong, the NRL have no people over in New Zealand helping the Warriors. It's all the Warriors doing it off their own bat. And then so like they finally get to a point where they've got a well-structured club with good junior pathways, and then we just go, boom, another team.
Yep.
And that just decimates all the money that they've put in. They lose essentially, let's say every year they take in 10 of the best talent across the country. That goes down to 5. That has a big impact.
Yep.
They're already struggling as it is, and they've finally done it. But like at the end of the day, in a perfect world, the New Zealand Warriors should essentially be the New Zealand side. Like that's what we should be striving for. Yeah. And there was a couple of years ago where they had like maybe one player that was starting in the New Zealand side. So that's the worry I have. Eventually I do want it, but allow the Warriors to just get to become one of the more dominant sides, to get the good bases in, have the juniors there for a decade or so, and then bring that side.
I agree. It's taken 30 years for the Warriors to get to this point. It'd be wrong to just pillage them.
And they've done it all themselves. To my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that they have, there's no NRL not headquarters, but a version of a headquarters there where there's like AFL have a base in Queensland of like 40 to 50 staff where they work out of. I don't think there's any of that in New Zealand.
Yeah. So I'm with you. Initially, like when you don't think about it deeply, New Zealand was probably my second choice, to be honest, behind Brisbane. But yeah, I just think let the Warriors shine for a bit.
Yep. I'm with you. I would like eventually, like, I don't know, maybe it's in 30, 40 years, like how good would it be to have Tonga, Samoa, PNG? That's when it would be like, and all at a high standard, like that's when, and that's like,
that would be
in 50
amazing.
years, maybe that could happen. And that could be truly like, you know, if you're like a Gus Gould and you remember the game, 50 years ago, we'll be like Gus Gould going, mate, the game was nothing like this 50 years ago. International game with like teams that have whole countries beside them. So, okay. Is Brady playing his way into Origin, if not this year and next year? I think Robson would have to play pretty poorly. The problem with people trying to get that 9 jersey for New South Wales is like Robson, he may not be playing his best ever at club, but he very rarely plays poorly. And because he's so sturdy there, and defence, I just think if I'm a number 9 right now, if I'm a selector for New South Wales, I just want my number 9 to be the best defender in the comp and have good service. If you've got gun service and you're the best defending 9, that's all I need from you. I got so many guns outside you. Whereas like, I just think that Robson, unless his defence drops off the face of the, like just off the cliff, it's going to be super hard. Now, if Robson gets an injury, I do think Brayley's next. I think his form has just gone to a whole nother level this year.
His defence is that good. His service is amazing. I wouldn't be dropping Robson. I wouldn't even be thinking about it at this point. But Brayley's getting better every week. And Robson has been playing pretty good. He started the year not so good, and then he came all right. But if he's not playing like he is this year and Brayley's knocking the door down, I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah, I just think that Robson, he's always going to be a good defender, so it's going to be super tough. Yeah. But Brayley's absolutely he's going to keep Robson honest for sure.
For sure, yeah.
He has just gone to a whole new level this year.
Those two have battled their whole way through. I remember I was in the New South Wales under 20s. It might have been 20s or 18s. And I think for the second year in a row, Robson was the 9, Brayley was the 14.
Oh, really? Yeah. Wow. Okay, what happened to Bloke Beer? No, nothing like happened as in it still exists. I'll just be totally honest with you, Bloke Beer. So with the pricing, so we contract brew. We don't have our own brewery. To have your own brewery, you got to spend millions of dollars. And like, obviously we don't have that. And so with contract brew, it costs more to do. And then each year the government is just like the tax excise on it. Honestly, nearly a majority of the cost that the majority of the cost of your beer is literally taxes. Or at the very least, it's like 40 to 50%. And so that's why when you go to other countries, beer's like $20 or something. It's because they barely tax it. Whereas Australia, just the amount of tax is insane. This is how insane the tax is. Albo ran, one of his core was, I'm not going to increase alcohol tax excise, beer tax excise, which is insane. Anyway, so basically, and me, this is just me being fair dinkum, we never made any money on the beer because I had two options. I charge $70 for a case of beer or $75 a case of beer because we're a small company, a small beer. But then I know my audience, they don't drink beer like that. They don't drink beer. Like my audience is your everyday bloke. They don't have $70 to spend or $75 to spend on a beer. And so I had a choice of two things. Charge around the $54, $59.99, and don't get me wrong, I know some people are going, hey man, I went to some bottle shops and they were charging like $65 or some $70. Once we sell it to a bottle shop, we can't make them sell it for a certain price. We can only sell it for and tell them we hope you would sell it at anywhere from $55 to $59. And so basically, as I said, I had two options. Was essentially increase the price dramatically, or keep it at that price. And it just became unsustainable, to be honest. And so the beer is still around. We're just trying to tweak some things, and it will probably be more expensive. But I just didn't want to. I don't know. I just didn't want to do it at the time. So it'll probably. I want to get to a point where we sell it online, and that way it's purely like, if you want to get it, that's awesome, and then we can reevaluate things. In a few years' time. And the reason why I don't talk about it much on the podcast, believe it or not, I try to keep the ads to as little as possible. And if I was pushing Grumpy and Bloke beer, I just feel like it's unfair. Like, if I'm saying to you, buy Grumpy, it supports the platform, or by the way, buy Bloke beer, it supports the platform. I don't know. It just feels unfair. And I know that we do merch drops and everything like that, but I try to keep it. I try to keep it to as little as possible, and I try to keep ads to like segments. So, like, for example, instead of me reading an ad for 3 minutes or whatever, I go intro to the ad. So this is brought to you by Sportsbet, and then you get content, face the music or whatever. And so, I just didn't want to overload everything with way too many. And I know we've got a bunch of, we do have a bunch of ads, but me being, again, fair dinkum, like, if you knew how much it costs to get it all going, like, we pay Roo, we pay Timmy, we pay Hammy, we pay obviously Maddie, we pay Eddie, we pay Tom, we pay everyone. We got a studio. We've the whole reason I started Grumpy is because I'd love to get to a point where we don't have to rely on ads. But so we make all this money on ads. We then start Grumpy, so all our money's gone because we've started Grumpy. So my hope is eventually I'm going to have a product that gets so big that when you listen to our podcast, we only have like a few ads, like 2 or 3 max, maybe 1, honestly. In my dream world, if it was my choice, I would love the coffee to get so big that it was literally no external ads outside of maybe some of our bigger partners. Because I actually do think, funnily enough, like when we send out the survey, our people love the segments brought to you by Sportsbet. That's our number one segment. Like, people say love it. Funnily enough, even so, in the last off season, we didn't have menu log for a few months. People were like, bring it back, bring it back. And so that's just me being totally honest with what's happening. And the reason why, I guess you can go back and see whether I'm telling the truth. When I started this podcast, for years, I didn't do any ads because my hope was the beer would explode big enough where it would we would generate enough revenue where we didn't have to have ads. But unfortunately, that just didn't happen. It was my naive. I just looked at it and I said, okay, listen, if 100,000 people a week are listening to this podcast, 10,000 will go out and buy a case of beer or something like that. Bro, it's just not the case. Like, bro, you'd be lucky. Like, I reckon maybe 0.5%, 1% of people, if max, that, buy stuff.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy with that. That's just the podcast audience. If you include our Instagram, which we reach 20 million people a month, it's like 0.0000001%. And so that's just a fact of the matter. So my dream is, if anything happened perfectly, is Grumpy explodes, and then we go, geez, we're killing it. All this revenue come in. Okay, all those extra ads, we don't need them. We brush them. We keep 1 or 2 bigger segments. And then maybe one day, if Grumpy explodes, we bring Bloke beer back. And because we've brushed all those extra segments, then you can advertise Bloke, a beer, and Grumpy coffee. And so that's literally 100% just the truth. Like, there's no two ways about it. I think a lot of people would be surprised. Like, you probably sit there and assume, we've got all this cash and like everything is. It's absolutely not the case. We're still, when you actually look at the way Bloke is set up, we're still as in its current form. When I think we started essentially in its current form in like 2020.
Well, this studio was opened in February 2021.
Fuck, there you go. 2021 in its current form. The way you see it now, everything before that was just me by myself, like doing the potty. And so, we are technically in our first, I think it's like 5 years you have to make it through to be considered a legitimate business that is going to last the test of time. And so, that's just a fact of the matter. We need ads to pay everyone. As I said, we pay all the boys, Hammy. When guests come on, we pay them. Roo, Timmy, Tommy, Eddie, every single week. So it's just Maddie. Then we've got people that we have to pay to get the ad sold. We've got people that we have to pay. We have to build a roastery. We've got people we got to pay there. Yeah, that's just the reality. Just the reality.
I think as well, I know like people don't like ads, but like I think the ads we do, like you do get stuff out of them.
That's the hold. I try to. Like that, and like I can say this, and you're either gonna believe it or not believe it. But whenever I speak to people coming on board, I'm always like, "Can you give us a discount? Can you, do something for our community?" And that's what I'm trying to build up with the Bloke Club.
I ran into a dude at the charity footy match earlier in the year, and he told me that he reckons he's used every menu log code.
Mate, I tell you what, the amount of people that have used that code is like.
It's crazy.
Crazy numbers. And that makes me proud. And so like, I know there are just some people out there, like for example, we did the content where I was with Lukey, and it was ringing players and asking their predictions. And there were people that were like, oh man, too many ads. But like that ad is purely so that we can give a Mazda away to someone for free.
Yeah.
Like we don't get paid for that ad. That is literally, the exchange is if you give me a Mazda BT50 to give to one of our audience, I'll promote Aspley Mazda and yourself. And so it's like, I'm trying to do something good for the community. Listen, I get it. What I will say, I'm not complaining at all. I understand that this next generation especially are so used to getting things essentially for free. Like not many, I will say this though, in my defense, if you watch a YouTube, if you don't have YouTube Red and you watch a 10 to 20 minute YouTube clip, you're usually sitting through 2 to 3 ads in that time.
Oh yeah, you're sitting it every 5 or 10 minutes.
And it's anywhere from 30 seconds of an ad read or 60 seconds of an ad read that you can't click out.
It's unskippable.
Unskippable. You know, with us, like we try to be very quick with the read and then into the actual content of stuff.
Yeah, like please notice that there's none of those unskippable ads on YouTube.
Yeah. And look, maybe one day we might, try to put some because what you can do is you can do this thing where you can insert 60-second ads at the start or whatever, and it's a guaranteed income each week. And we might do that. But if we do that, what we'll try to do is make everything, like other things, less. But what I will say is that we're never going to get like radio or whatever. And also what I will say, I'm not complaining. I understand people's frustrations sometimes with ads. It might be a brand you don't like. It might be just something you're just sick of hearing about. I trust me. I totally understand it. I get it. And I'm not complaining at all. I'm totally aware as a guy that grew up consuming online content, I understand the idea of like for example, YouTube for me, because I pay for YouTube Red.
Yeah, so like now. Yeah.
When I get onto my missus' phone, I'm like, because she doesn't have Red. And she watches the ads. It doesn't bother her because she's used to it. But I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So I understand it.
Sometimes like I'm really bad at direct deposits. Like I'm actually probably the worst in the world. So sometimes like I'll have to go in and manually do it. And my YouTube Premium is on my old card still.
Yep.
And so I keep forgetting to update it.
Oh.
And then sometimes it'll be like, it's running out soon. I'm like, I'll do it. And then I'll forget. Yeah. And then it'll go back to normal YouTube and I'll just be furious.
Oh yeah. So look, I understand, guys. I really do. I hope, as I guess authentic as I can be, I'm always aware of it and I'm always trying to make it the best listening experience possible. We don't have millions of dollars sitting in the bank or anything like that. I promise you that much. And we are not living some crazy flash life. I live in a 2-bedroom unit. Like, it's not, I know all the jokes about, mansions and $1 million. It's not the case, guys. I think we did really well last year with ads. We took that money and we invested into Grumpy because as I said, I would love to get to a point where it explodes. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Top film tips. If you had the chance to be coach, this is from Top Film Tips, who I speak to a little bit in regards to when a good movie's out, he shoots us a message, which is
nice.
Awesome. If you had a chance to be coached by one person or present coach in the NRL, who would it be? Not including Coach Jad.
Can I guess?
I think you'll know.
Serraldo.
No, Bellamy.
True.
I would love to go down and experience that Storm culture.
Yeah, true.
But Serraldo would probably be second. Serraldo would be second. I actually met Serraldo years ago when I had the pub. That's another thing, guys. When you go into pubs, look, if there are these huge pubs, they make a lot of money. If you go to a small little hole in the wall, mate, having owned a pub myself, bro, never again. Never again. It is like you do not make that much money, that's for sure. Okay. So he was actually... met him years ago. He was the assistant coach, I think, at Penrith at the time. And at the time, Penrith weren't going that well. And he dropped in, had a few beers. He was with Peter Wallace. Really good guy. You could tell, you know how like there's just some people that have this presence about them. You don't know what it is. You don't know, you can't really explain it. Wayne Bennett is obviously one of them. Bellamy is one of them. Phil Gould is one of them. Serraldo is one of them. And I know, a lot of pushback, but I still am quite, obviously it's a red hot take, but I think that we're witnessing the beginning of the next great coach with Serraldo. I really do.
I think it's there for all to see how the Bulldogs are going.
Yeah. I mean, look, teams have had really good years and then really bad years, but I'm just really, once they build the roster on paper that has like all these Origin players and internationals and that, him with a roster like a top tier roster on paper.
Yeah. I remember the general consensus last year was, because in the last few years we'd had teams that had a really good year and then the next year they'd gone down, like the Warriors, the Cowboys. But the general consensus was, I don't feel that way with the Dogs. And now they're still winning the comp.
Yep, it's true. Okay, if you could pick one New South Wales player to switch to Queensland, who would it be? I mean, mate, Nathan Cleary every day of the week. Not because of he doesn't play like a Queenslander or whatever, but just like mate, I know there's a lot of Blues fans that are like not like as they love Cleary at Clubland, but for some reason aren't that into him in Origin. Mate, you know how much security I would feel knowing that Nathan Cleary is our halfback for the next 10 years? Because at the very least you're getting a bloody good halfback. Whereas like at the moment, who's our next 10-year halfback? Like Dearden, maybe. Sammy Walker, maybe.
Yeah.
It's just a big question. So Nathan Cleary, probably Payne Haas as well.
I thought you were going to say Liam Martin, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we've got dogs like him. Like I think that we've got enough of that. Now, if you're going to say who plays the most like a Queenslander, I would say Liam Martin, obviously. Yeah. But it's more just I want the superstars. I want Payne Haas. Like, imagine a front row Tino Payne Haas. That's what is crazy. Samoa, bruh. Samoa's front row could be Tino, May, Haas.
I actually, and this is going to sound very un-Australian, I hope they go. I want to see it.
That might be the greatest front row of all time.
It probably is.
That might be, if you consider 13 in the front row, that may be the greatest front row of all time. Like, at least if May keeps performing the way he is. Now, maybe you go back, I'm trying to think like Taumalolo, Fafita, and someone else. Like I will say, the one thing with Fafita that doesn't get talked about enough, and I know he had up and down form-wise, and he found his place towards the end of his career as a senior player. Fafita at his best was as good as the guys we're seeing today. And just because he's a little bit up and down with injuries and everything like that, people forget. Go back and watch the grand final for Cronulla Sharks. Fafita was doing all the crazy stuff we're seeing front rowers do, and arguably more.
And then some.
And so, he doesn't really get talked about enough for Fafita because of the up and down his career with injuries or whatever. But him at his best, bruh. He would go into Origin in the first series and he blew us apart.
2017 Game 1, go watch the highlights. We went up there, Suncorp Game 1, and that's the last time we won Suncorp Game 1 until this year, and it was off the back of Fafita.
Like, this guy at his best was a monster.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see him in this day and age where it seems that players are all, they're forced to just be fully involved with the rehab and recovery, and it seems like their ability to get players on the field in relatively good nick is just second to none. In this day and age with quick play the balls, with less wrestle, imagine him with less wrestle.
Oh, yeah. He was already scoring long-range tries. Imagine what he could do now.
The only thing that stopped Andrew Fafita, was wrestle because that's the whole point of jiu-jitsu and wrestling is it doesn't, obviously size does matter to a degree, but if you've got two blokes on you, you can use all of these holds to hold them down. Now that wrestle is still a part of the game, but nowhere near the same. Imagine what he'd be doing getting quick play the balls. Imagine how quick the play the balls he'd get because you can't hang all over him and he wins most of the contact.
Yeah.
I tell you what, there's one thing that we don't appreciate enough. The dour point our game got to with the wrestle at its peak
really did
was disgraceful. It is, and look, I understand why the wrestle came in. I get it. We are going to look for any part of the game we can. And the thing is, I think a lot of people go, oh, Storm brought in the wrestle or whatever. But I think that it was inevitable. Someone was going to, as mixed martial arts became more popular, someone was going to identify it can be used.
Yeah, they were just ahead of the
ahead of the curve. Whether it was him, it was going to be someone else. And it was actually, I say this all the time, it was because the Tigers were surrendering every tackle. Yeah. So it was just a reaction to that. They would just literally had this small mobile forward pack and they would just go hit, boom, find their front, just go.
It's pretty interesting watching old games, like, well, not old games, like 10, 15 years ago. Like, the difference is actually wild.
Crazy. How slow the games were getting and bogged down in the wrestle. It was just like painful to watch. It's actually funny going and watching old games where you'll see a tackle, and you're so used to seeing guys wrestle and grab what's the word again? Grab underhooks or levers and stuff. You're so used to it. When you go back and watch old footy, you see all these opportunities for players to like hold players down, and they just get straight up because it's not even in their mind to do it.
Yeah.
Like they're not even thinking, I've got this guy and I've got this guy kind of facing diagonal. I actually could twist him all the way back to face backwards. That's not even thinking for them.
Yeah.
So it's really weird to watch. Okay. What was the main reason you started Bloke in a Bar? The main reason was I just wanted to give people an opportunity to see these blokes who they were as people. And I always used to get a bit frustrated when blokes were just getting this negative rap that we were just terrible. Like being a bloke, you're just bad. Like man, bad. And don't get me wrong, I'm not some weirdo that doesn't think that we don't need things to improve or whatever, but I'm a big proponent of positive masculinity. I do think there is so many good things about masculinity. There's also some stuff that we need to improve, but I think there's so many good things with masculinity. And I think that Bloke, and it started as a celebration of positive masculinity, all the good things that men do. And I just felt like we were throwing the baby out with the bathwater instead of going, yeah, it's a new time. We do need to adapt. Everyone needs to adapt. It's called progress. But at the same time, there are some things that are timeless. There are some things there's a reason why they've stood the test of time. And I felt like that was coinciding with people just didn't know footy players. Like the amount of people that used to message me after I'd interview a player and go, bro, I used to hate that guy. Then I hear him speak and he's just like, he's one of my mates. He's one of the boys. And that was the first real, I guess, that was the start of was it the embryo? What is it? I don't know what it is. The start of it all. That was the genesis. Was just like, you know what? I feel like, yep, there are absolutely some footy players that carry on like absolute dickheads. But find me a group of, let's just say, 400 highly highly skilled individuals, and tell me that you're not going to find at least some of them being dickheads. And maybe there are a little bit more in rugby league, I'm not sure. But what I do know for a fact is most league players are just knockabout blokes from probably pretty tough upbringings that are good blokes as well. They're good people. And I'd always make the argument, a lot of rugby league players, because they've been educated to try and help people, they just go out of their own way to help people in their own time. And that doesn't make them an angel. I'm just saying there's actually a lot of stuff that footy players do that the wider community doesn't do as a part of their job. So, as I said, again, it's not woe is me. It's not like, oh, these guys have it so hard. They don't have it so hard. They absolutely live in the dream. Don't get me wrong. They work their backsides off it. I never understood is like people that try and have a crack at rugby league players. Like I get the thought process of like, man, there's way worse off in the world. I get that. Like, but okay, you could say that about anything.
Exactly,
that's way worse in the world. But I always make this argument. Would you begrudge, let's say next year the minimum wage increased to $1 million. We'll just say $1 million. That's insane. It wouldn't, like, that's 50 years away, but let's just say it did. The amount of people that'll be like, they don't deserve that, they don't deserve that. Now, let's flip the script. Let's say there were 400 doctors from the age of 5, because that's when most footy players start sacrificing, and it isn't seen as a sacrifice because it's fun. But let's say, for example, a doctor from the age of 5 on Tuesday night was training, so he was like reading, she was reading, learning, practical, all that kind of stuff. On Thursday night, they were reading, learning, practicing. Then on Saturday, they went out and spent 3 or 4 hours doing all the theory and learning to be a doctor or whatever. Let's say that increased only as they got older. And don't get me wrong, they did it because it was fun, but at the same time, instead of going out with their mates, they were at home studying to be a doctor. They got to 20 years old and they were getting paid $1 million a year. There's not a single person that would say they don't deserve that that $1 million a year. Because they'd be like, first of all, it's a doctor, but that doctor has been studying to be that since they are an expert in the field. Like, they are so good in their field. They've spent so many hours to be great at what the industry that they're in, that of course they deserve a lot of money. And that's where I kind of not understanding people that begrudge rugby league players, because they have been training to be that since they were 5-6 years old. At least most of them. But again, that doesn't mean that I'm like, woe is me to league players. That's not the case at all. It's just the thought process.
I've never subscribed to that because like I love rugby league. It's probably the number one thing I love outside, family and friends. But like rugby league's provided me entertainment since I can remember. And like that's why I've never even thought about subscribing to that. It's not even that they're in the top 400 in their field. Like that's a whole separate thing. But like they provide entertainment for basically the whole country.
Yeah, yeah. And look, if you want to go down the path of we idolize the wrong people and we should be paying our teachers more and all that, like that's actually not an argument against league players. That's an argument essentially against capitalism.
Yeah.
And so you're getting into deeper philosophical arguments about the way capitalism works, supply, demand, the free market, etc. Unfortunately, attention is what matters. The free market dictates that the supply and demand of that it's all that kind of stuff. So, I've never really subscribed. Like, I've never really subscribed to the idea that they don't deserve. Like, even for example, Origin. Like the fact that they get paid $30K in Origin, it sounds insane. Like they get paid nearly $100,000. When you tax that and you give away, managers' fees and everything like that, let's say they end up with, a tax rate. If you're Origin and you're the average wage in the NRL is probably around $300K. So you're probably in the highest tax bracket. So let's just say you're at 45% tax. So immediately you get taxed 45%. So you're down to about, we'll just say $18,000K. $18,000. Managers' fees, which is about 6%. Let's just say you're at 14K. We'll just say 14K. Being super conservative, let's say they get $14,000 in the bank. For how much revenue Origin generates, it's actually a joke.
And not only that, it's been $30K for 20 years.
Insane.
Like that's ridiculous, really.
Bro, think about how much you could buy with it. You could buy a house. Like 30 years ago, you could only buy a friggin' house for $30,000. $30,000 today is like, honestly, it's probably the equivalent of $100,000 back then. Literally. Not even a G up. Like, and so... Yeah, if the players, let's say tomorrow, the players would come out and say, we want more, there's a large amount of people that would say, yeah, how dare you, you don't deserve it. It's like, well, they do deserve it because it generates so much money and they might make, let's say it generates $1 billion or I'll go conservative. Let's say it generates, I'll say 500 million, Origin, the whole series. And let's say each player gets 30 grand, 90 grand. I think it works out to be about $4 million in total. All the players get paid in Origin. 4 million out of 500 million is like, what is that? It's like it's like 0.5% or something like that. You can get it while I talk.
Yeah.
And so, I understand the concept of, times are tough, you're doing it tough, and then you see these players getting paid all this money and it doesn't seem like they appreciate it. I get that feeling. I mean, that's a human feeling. That's such a human feeling that we've all had where we're struggling, we're doing it tough. And this young upstart that doesn't seem to give a shit that he's getting paid all this money, I get that feeling. It's only human to go put yourself in their position and go, man, I would be so appreciative of what that was doing for me. But yeah, that's just kind of where I sit on it.
1.25%.
Yeah, 1.25% of the revenue that is generated. And as I said, you could drop that down to like, let's drop that down to 250 million. That's about, we'll just say 10%. We'll go super. Why are the players earning 10% of it? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like the NBA and the NFL, I think they earn like 40% of the revenue generated. Yeah,
it's unders for sure.
Okay. Don't forget, guys, give us a follow on the feed. Going to be putting my multis up this Savo, so stay tuned for that. And a massive thank you, as always, to Sportsbet for getting around us. Hopefully got some cool content coming out towards the end of the year with Sportsbet, but we'll see. Okay, what game as a kid did you spend the most time on? Mine was Diablo 2. Mate, my game that I spent the most time on was Ultima Online. You know what's crazy is like back then, it was the world to me, Ultima Online. Like it was, the reason why I loved the internet as a kid is because like I didn't have that many friends. So all my friends were on the internet. And I was always just like, I love the fact that, especially back then with the internet, it attracted a certain kind of person. So you were usually meeting very like-minded people on the internet because most people weren't on the internet. So you were meeting other kids like you that probably didn't have many friends in real life, and you just got along, and there was this sense of kind of camaraderie, and it was just a nice place to be on the internet early on. Obviously, it's changed quite a lot. And so what blew me away about Ultima Online, it's an online game where it's a world that you have a character in. I just couldn't believe, like, I remember logging in the first time and going, there's a world with other people that you get to talk to and kill stuff with. Like, that is so friggin' cool. And what's bizarre is, like, as I said, I look back now when I was younger in the Ultima Online, it was a world to me. I was like, it meant so much to me. I assumed everyone knew what Ultima Online was. You know, when you're young and you think that everyone knows what you know.
Yeah.
And I look back now, it was probably like 300 or 400 people in Australia that was on this server. Like,
that's crazy.
No, like barely anyone.
Yeah.
Like 300 or 400 people, but it was the world to me. And then it changed to World of Warcraft. And yeah, even when I was playing first grade, I'd play, I'd get home, and then on my day off, I'd just sit there all day just playing. I obviously had mates that were playing footy, but a lot of my friends were all online at that stage, and this was 2008 or whatever. So World of Warcraft, Ultima Online. In regards to my favourite game of all time, Ultima Online will always have a soft spot. World of Warcraft to a degree, and The Witcher 3. Who are the 5 current players you would build a new roster around? Ooh, that's a tough one. Payne Haas. I mean, it depends what you want. Are we just listing the best 5 players, or are we going marquee player, 6, 7? You know what I mean? Like, is it going to be realistic?
And like, it's easy to say the best 5 players, but then your whole salary cap's gone.
Yeah. Okay. Trying to think. Yeah, I'd probably have to give that more thought, bro, because I'd have to actually sit down and look at the cap or whatever.
Maybe go one player then. Like, what if who do Perth want the most?
Well, like, for example, I'm Perth. I'm looking at Campbell. Jaden Campbell or Farlongo for fullback. Probably Farlongo, because I reckon you're probably going to get him for cheaper than Campbell. The good thing about Campbell, though, is he can play 6, 7 and fullback if he has to, but he's more of a fullback. This would be my strategy. I'd be going to clubs. I'd be either going into the best clubs and finding their reserve grade players, kind of like what the Eels did with Penrith. And trying to go to a guy that's the next big thing. Like, this is what the Dolphins did really smart. They went to Katoa and said, the best club in the competition, and maybe ever, rates you highly. Let's give you $600K, which is like a lifetime away from what you're actually on right now. So it's like, he has to say yes to that. He's a 17, 18-year-old, probably not he's from humble beginnings. He can't say no to it. But if you have a solid 7 on $600K, it's not breaking the bank for you. So that's what I'd be looking at. I'd be looking at guys that are either at the best clubs in the reserve grade side, or I'd be looking at struggling clubs with stars that, probably are like, I want to get out of here and try something new. That's why I think Campbell would be a really interesting one for fullback. You could probably get him for about 700 or so. Maybe it's tough though. He's probably so connected to the Gold Coast. But I think Farlongo is a really interesting one, because you're getting a gun fullback. You can get him for a good price. He's used to living away from, he's been in Melbourne all this time. He grew up in Melbourne, so he's not used to New South Wales, Sydney. He'd probably maybe be keen to go to Perth. And then I'd be looking for other like guys like Bailey Hayward that kind of like are guns. They're durable. They bring a good culture. So that's kind of where I'd be landing. Who was close to winning the comp? Parramatta or Saints? Ooh, I'd just say Parramatta just because I got Moses.
Yeah,
that's just a real key for us. And like, the tough thing for the Dragons is it could get worse before it gets better. And what I mean by that is that you've got these old guys going to age out, and they've got some really good young forwards that have played well, but I'm yet to see who's the guys replacing Val, Cookie, and Gutho. That's what I need to wait and see. Whereas at the moment, the Eels, like with Moses and Brown in the side, I know Brown's leaving, but with Moses in the side at full strength, like they'd probably be fighting for the top 8. And that's exciting in the first year, so I'd probably say Eels. But it's pretty much like...
When Moses came back, I remember thinking the Eels season isn't dead and buried, but now he's gotten injured again. He makes such a difference.
Yeah, massive. What was your best memory while at the Warriors? Probably the sideline conversion, or close-ish to the sideline against Manly. Another memory that like was a bit bittersweet. I remember we were playing against the Roosters at home, and I did this like cover tackle in the dying moments that took out a Roosters player. And I just remember the CEO coming up to me at the time and was like, more of that. That's so good. And like, this is what we'll talk about if we activate your 3rd-year option. And like, it was just, it felt like the first time where I'd just really been just complimented and wrapped, and it felt like, oh yeah, like they like me. And that's it's silly because I'm sure that there was many more times than that. But when you're a 21-year-old in a new city, in a new country, barely played rugby league, you're probably just you're not realizing how many opportunities you've got. You know, I probably needed someone to put an arm around me, and I don't think that I put myself out there enough for them to realize that I needed an arm around me. Like I remember finding out that the team manager, who was such a good guy, far out, he was so nice to me, he took care of everything. I remember I found out that he had rang Broncos and said, like, how do we get the best out of this guy? Like, we just need to, you know, just fire him up and show that he cares. And I was so surprised because like I was like, bro, I care a lot. Like, I can't believe you guys think I don't care. And so maybe it was a mixture of both things. It was me being young. I will say in my defense, like, as a 21-year-old, it's probably the older people's job in the building to get to engage that person. But the reality of the matter is I'm still a man. I still could have communicated to them. They were a bloody good club. They really were. I do just regret how much negative stuff was happening off the field. Like I was in such a bad relationship. Looking back at it now, like I can't believe I copped all that stuff. Like it just such a bad relationship, and it just made me. Then I'm in a new country. I'm away from family. It just and when you get isolated in these bad relationships, it's the worst. It's like literally a recipe for disaster. What was my best memory? I spoke about that obviously the conversion. I think also just how loyal, even though it didn't work out and it wasn't great. New Zealand Warriors fans are always so nice to me, which I do appreciate. Okay, this is from George Diakis. Do aliens exist? I think so. I think it's almost impossible that they don't. If the idea of infinity means that if the universe does go on for infinite, or at the very least, so long that it basically should be, I think it's almost a mathematical impossible. I know what's it called? It's like some theory where it's like that they actually should be quite a few located around us in our galaxy or something like that, and there aren't. Therefore, something that, anyway. But I think so. Fuck, what do I know? Jesus Christ, we're talking about aliens. Liam Wayne, what do Cowboys need to do to sort out season? Do they need a roster shake up and not on the beers? Jeez, bro. I honestly don't know, eh? That is just, I do think that they need a big, like the Taumalolo signing, $1 million in a guy that, just doesn't seem to be working, and he does play decent, but just it's such a big, when you look at the $1 million being spent at other clubs on their main man in the forwards, they're in the peak of their powers. And so I just think that that's totally handicapping their ability to bring in, because I think they need to bring in forwards. But at the same time, I don't begrudge Taumalolo anything. He signed the contract.
I remember thinking at the time that he took a bad deal because I thought he was worth more.
Yeah. Well, he did take, you have to remember at the time this guy was, and I think. He
won 2 Dally M's.
I think
1 Dally M.
With Taumalolo, him at his best, you could argue he's the greatest forward of all time.
Oh, he is undoubtedly in the conversation.
You would take like him at his best. I don't know if it's even ever been seen before, because has any front rower ever run for 330 meters or whatever since?
I don't think so. A front rower,
as in like a 13 or a front rower. I don't think so. And just if you actually were around at the time Taumalolo was doing what he was doing, like, bro. Seriously.
He was unstoppable.
Yeah, unstoppable. Yeah, but I guess it's tough because, listen, if you guys were just losing games because your forward pack was getting dominated or whatever, the problem is it's not just that, it's the amount of errors that happened. It's, so it's like, if you want to focus in on how he's getting $1 million and that's what's holding you back, it's like, well, no, actually there's other players as well that, aren't going as well. So I don't know, bro. It's such a tough one. It is such a tough one. Guys, use code, I think it's Yongi.
Yongi. I saw some comments, yeah.
So I'm just going to say that until I get corrected. Use code Yongi for free delivery. That's IONGI for free delivery. A massive shout out to the local legends on Menulog. Rupus Fishing, does the beak like jet skis? I've actually never been on a jet ski.
Really?
No, I don't think I have. Not a big jet ski water guy. Yeah, like just, I mean, I enjoy the beach and all that stuff, and swimming's fun and all that. Yeah, but just not a big jet ski / boat guy. Been on some boats or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. Just, I don't know. Like for me, growing up, like jet skis are for rich people.
Yeah, true.
That's the way I see it. Like, if someone said, "Oh yeah, we got a jet ski," I'll be like, "Oh yeah, you're rich." But to even consider purchasing a jet ski when I was growing up is madness. Like, we wouldn't have anywhere close to that money. Like, bro, yeah, I don't know. And maybe it's changed, so maybe I'm speaking out of turn. But I think most people my age that are listening, or around 35, when you grow up with like, genuinely sometimes there's not much food in the fridge. Like, jet ski? What? That's craziness. Let's say, like, and someone might be go, oh well, you can hire them or whatever, but like, again, to waste, well, let's say, I don't know, back in the day, let's say it was $200 on a weekend to do that. We didn't have $200 to hire a jet ski for the weekend or whatever it was. And so, yeah, I just never, all those kind of like things that required money, I just never got involved in because we didn't have any money to do it. All our money was spent on going away. Like, people always talk about, oh, you know, we'd go on a family holiday once a year or we'd go here. Bro, we didn't have family holidays. We went away for state titles. That's it. We didn't go out to dinner. We didn't do any of that stuff. But my dad worked his backside off. Think about having to pay for 4, because all 4 of us would go to state titles and that. So he worked his backside off, and my mum worked her backside off, but we never had money for any of that stuff. Like, I can't even, like, for example, a Christmas big dinner or a big, huge family dinner, we'd go to Sizzler or Pizza Hut. That's what you do. Never these nice, no way. But I feel very fortunate for the upbringing I had. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. Are you getting back into Space Marine when the Siege update drops? Probably not. Probably not. Space Marine was good. Space Marine was good. Finished the campaign, but probably won't get back into it at the moment. Playing like Claire Expedition 33. I'm going to try that. I just started. I'm going to try that. How does your beak affect LeBron's legacy? Oh, wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to know? Do you think Marky Mark should be brought in New South Wales fold? Not necessarily a starting position, but just to experience it. Do you think he's a potential New South Wales player? I think with Marky Mark, like, he's already played for the Wallabies, so he's not like he's a rookie that needs the big stage experience. So I think that if he does come in, it's going to be to play.
Yeah.
I think because that extra few spots, you can't give it to friggin' everyone. You got to give it to, I'd rather give that to Katoa to get some experience. Nelson Aiden, without being humble, do you think you've started the podcast era for NRL players? I think it's almost a fact, to be honest. Like, I don't, without being a dick, but like, no one was doing it before us. I think there's a lot of people that don't realize, like, I remember someone coming up to me and saying, Hello Sports started, I work for them.
What?
So there's a lot of people out there that they're new to the fray.
I see, yeah.
And they don't know their history. Which was fine. I just said, yeah, of course, I work for Hello Sport. But it just shows you, like, people enter things differently. So I don't think there'd be any dispute in regards to, like, did I start the podcasting for NRL because I was the first one. I think that the more of the question would be, what impact has Bloke had on podcasts in general in Australia? I think that's probably the debatable question you could have of, was there other ones that, people look to? I think there's a wider audience out there, at least on the Eastern Seaboard, that Bloke in a Bar was probably one of their first podcasts they heard about rather than listened to.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that is because, like, we aren't just big for a sports podcast. We are in the top 5 podcasts every single week on Spotify, pretty much. And for Australian, if you take out Joe Rogan Experience, we're usually in the top 3 Australian podcasts every single week. And what's interesting about that is we have a huge YouTube audience. Whereas a lot of those podcasts they don't get 30,000 views on YouTube. So if we took those views, put them into Spotify, we'd probably be number 1 or 2 every single week. But that doesn't mean we're the biggest though. There's some huge ones out there. Like, you look at like We Mean Well, they're friggin' massive. Alpha Bloke's always killing it. The Hello Sport Boys killing it.
Great cricketer.
Great cricketer's big. And what's interesting about Great Cricketer is they're huge in India.
Yeah.
So their numbers are like mental because they're in India. Super, super smart. They're just like so talented. I can't sometimes you just listen to people talk and you're like, yeah, you are supposed to be where you're at.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas there's some podcasts you listen to, you're like, yeah, they're good, but there's nothing different or unique about the way they kind of present things. Guys, don't forget NordVPN. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloke-in-a-bar. Bloke in a bar. Our link will also give you, so you make sure to use our link, 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. So there's no risk. You get your money back if you don't like it. Trust me, guys. Make yourself safe. Get on NordVPN. Who plays fullback for Queensland if Ponga isn't there? Now, that's the tough one. Some people have said Hammer, but I just don't know if Hammer gets through enough work in Origin to be at the fullback position. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. Like, Reece Walsh potentially, but like, yes, he had a good game on the weekend, especially the second half, but he still had, kicked, I think it was like 2 or 3 7-tackle sets. And also, he's clearly injured, Reece Walsh, right now. So he can't go in injured. So I think at the moment, like, there just really isn't anyone screaming out to do that, So, okay. How's the growth of the podcast been? Oh, sorry, no. What do you think would win in a cage fight to the death between Lockie, Thurston? Sorry, who do you think? Between Lockie, Thurston, Cronk and Smith. One winner, no weapons, no rules. E.g. dog shots are play on. Only one Queensland champion gets to leave the cage alive. Probably Lockie. Thurston or Lockie? I just think Lockie was probably the best athlete, or Thurston. Probably Lockie was the best athlete. And a lot of people don't realise that. But go back and watch him play fullback.
Yeah.
He was fast as shit. Now, the reason I could see Smithy winning is because he'd be like incredible at jiu-jitsu.
See, that's why my pick is Cameron Smith.
So like in a round 1 knockout, I'm going Thurston because he's an explosive athlete.
Yeah.
He just, through the line. Lockie in between, he'd have that explosiveness. I think Smithy, if you're going a 5-round fight and he can get you into those 3rd and 4th and 5th rounds, he'll get you. I think Cronk would be a great wrestler. So, you know what? Probably Smithy, actually, now that I think. Because wrestling and jiu-jitsu usually, on the odds, wins. So pretty much Smithy Khabib, that's what it would be.
And we know he's durable.
He's very durable. We know how fit he is.
Yeah.
Like, fit as anything. How's the growth of the podcast been? Incredible, bro. Like, the amount of numbers that we get now, even when it's our down weeks, because this is usually the down time where there's buys and Origin. Origin is obviously big, are as big as our big weeks back in the day. And so we've had a record year. I think we're already 1 million downloads ahead of this time last year, which is like, bro, that's insane.
Yeah, it's actually been wild.
It's been wild. I didn't think there could be this much growth because we'd already gotten to such a point that when you get to a point, you're like, okay, there's only going to be like minute growth, minuscule growth or whatever each year because you're already kind of at the saturation point or whatever, but it hasn't been. It's been, I think it's in every single, so Spotify, YouTube, and Apple have all increased.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
Have all increased. So that's just, I just owe it to you guys, to be honest. If wingers didn't jam in, would less tries be scored? It's funny when these kind of like, these sayings that have like, permeated throughout the rugby league community because like people that don't really know rugby don't really know league make jokes about it, but they don't understand that the winger, like, do you just think that every winger is just a shit defender? Is that what it is? It's like, no, the winger's decision is the hardest defensive decision. Why do you think the closer you get into the middle of the field, the less tackles there are, the less missed tackles there are? Because the spaces are bigger. The spaces get smaller. It's not easy, but it's much easier to not miss a tackle when you've got 2 bodies like that beside you. Whereas the further you get on the wing, you've got like essentially 10 metres, and that's why wingers champ. What was your time at the Dragons like? Yeah, it was good. Really, like legend bunch of blokes. Really, really good bunch of blokes. And Pricey was our coach. He's currently the assistant coach for the Sharkies. He was so good to me, really understanding. I was in a bad place in my life mentally, and he was just so understanding. And he really did put me before rugby league. And I think in a time where we didn't have all this pressure around mental health and all that kind of stuff, he didn't need to do any of that stuff. But he did. He really did. And I'll be forever grateful to Pricey for that. And I actually seen him whenever I see him up there beside Fitzy, I I'm just always reminded of how good he was to me and how he put my own health before rugby league, and he didn't need to. He really didn't need to. He could have told me to beat it, see you later. I wasn't on a big wicket, so he could have got rid of me, and he didn't. Bloke Club share. Oh, guys, don't forget, join the Bloke Club, www.bloke.club. Who's Rookie of the Year so far?
I'll throw some at you.
Is Nwangani Tuwase played 4 games yet?
He only played 1 game last year, didn't he?
Well, Nwangani Tuwase.
Well, there's him. There's Robert Toyer.
Yep.
There's Tamale. There's Jamie Humphries.
Yep.
Trying to think of anyone else. I still think Nwangani Tuwase is winning.
Nwangani Tuwase, he is the Rookie of the Year so far. If he's eligible, maybe he's not. I don't know.
I think it's crazy that he's eligible.
Yeah.
Because he played for the Wallabies.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, mate, this guy is a
But like,
freak.
what if Quade Cooper, who's like 38 or whatever, decided to play NRL next year? Would he win Rookie of the Year?
I guess. Could you imagine? One of the great what if stories, Quade Cooper coming to such a good man. I mean,
that was one of my favorite interviews.
Yeah, he was so good. If you ever need to follow a person on social media, and this is the good side of social media, where you want to find out what the right mindset is to be great, follow Quade Cooper, because he's a perfect example of a guy that came in with all the talent, probably abused that talent. And what I mean by abused by that is like probably didn't appreciate it for what it was, realized it, and then in the back end of his career became the guy that didn't rely on his talent. He relied on his hard work, and he's got he puts really good practices in place to be the best version of himself. So really, really good guy, Quade. Really good guy. What's the bet with Roo for the decider? Start growing the goatee, mate. Listen, there's no bet because I went to game 2 and didn't get a bet. So why should I give a bet for game 3? That's nonsense.
One of the big regrets, like if you guys had that bet for game 2, then it would have been the greatest silver lining for me of all time to see Roo dye his beard blonde. But yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. What's your GOAT video game? Ultima Online, World of Warcraft, and The Witcher 3. Okay. Who's next Queensland rookie to be blooded in Origin? Got to be interesting to see what happens in the halves to a degree. Like, does Dearden stay at 7? You've got Purdue, who I think should go back to centre for a little bit. You've got Sammy Walker. I think people forget just how good Sammy Walker was playing when he was back. And he's a forgotten name, Sam Walker, because he's been injured for so long, but this guy is special. Like, you just forget. He's 22 years old now or something like that. Still so friggin' young. How much he's impacted NRL games at such a young age is like...
It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, and also doing it in a way that only Sam Walker could do. So people are just sleeping a little bit on Sammy Walker, I reckon. But I reckon Yongi is a guy, because the worry I have with Ponga, like, he doesn't... I just worry whether he's going to be in the game long term. Like, I think he's going Union. I just got this feeling, just reading the tea leaves, that he will be in Union by 2027 or 8. So I reckon Yongi could be a guy that's putting a bit of pressure next year. But, he's got to keep it up. This is his first year. You never know what happens in the second
speaking
year.
of Rookie of the Years, is he eligible?
Yongi? Yeah. Should be. Yeah, he would be. I think, actually... I think he might have played a bit for Penrith. I think he might have played a bit.
I thought he only played the 1 game. I'll have a look.
I've actually got it right here.
I reckon actually I'd pick him.
You know what?
He played 1 game for Penrith last year.
1 game? Okay. You know what? That's a fair shout. Yeah, I'd go...
Oh, it's tough. I don't know.
No, I'd go Nwangani Tuwase. He scored like the greatest try of all time, and he's done like multiple.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know why, but if you go Yongi, I'll go that as well.
Yeah.
How did you find the shift from physical demands of sport to the mental creative grind of radio and podcasting? They're not even, like, to be honest, like, radio and podcasting, it's not a real job. Like, I don't see it like that. Like, I've worked a real job. And maybe I feel that way because I enjoy it so much, whereas like my last job I didn't enjoy at all, and so that's why it was such a grind. But real jobs are, you're rocking up on site, 6:30 to 7. You got your start meeting, I forget what it was called, but your fucking starting meeting or whatever, at 7:10 or something like that. You're out on the tools, your phones are away, you're not allowed any phones on site, you're working till 10, you go and you have your smoko, that's about 15 minutes, usually takes 20 minutes. You get back out there, you're back in at, 12:31, you have a 30-minute smoko, then you're back out, and you're just working until anywhere from 4 till 5. Like, that's a real job. Like, that's a job that no one really does enjoy that much. This, to me, I don't wake up and go, oh man, far out, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. It's an absolute dream, And in regard to like what I will say, even the mental drag of my last job had nowhere near the comparison of the physical toll rugby league takes on your body. I don't think anyone, until you've played first grade, you just don't really know. That's why it frustrates me when like people, and it's the internet, so I get it, but people try to call any NRL player soft. It's just like anyone that plays one NRL game is 99.9% most likely more tough than anyone in the comment section. Or I'll say 95% because, you know, you could have army people in there or whatever. Because to get to that point, you have to be essentially broken all the way down and built back up. The only thing tougher than rugby league is boxing or MMA, and being in the army as a special forces probably unit, I'd say.
I reckon go, if you haven't, we probably can't do it for NRL. We'll try and sit in row A, but even go to a reserve grade game and like sit on the sideline.
Listen to it. Listen to it's a car crash every run. Essentially. So, yeah, if you haven't ever been to a game, go to a local league game that's New South Wales Cup or Queensland Cup and just listen to the physicality of it, and you'll get a sense for... There's a reason why there's a lot of boxers and MMA fighters like, I could never be a league player, like, and vice versa, obviously. Okay. Would you consider the Bloke brand becoming a sponsor to a professional sporting team? Yeah, I would love one day for Bloke to sponsor the Australian side. I would love that, to have Bloke across the bottom there. That would be an absolute dream come true. That would be, you know, truly a pinch me moment. And I wouldn't even be doing it almost to get money back. It would just be like, let's say we killed it, Grumpy exploded or whatever, and we had enough to sponsor the Australian side. That would just be like, just an incredible moment. Incredible moment. I'll never forget the last thing I said to my grandfather on my mother's side. The last thing he said to me on his... You know, passed away a few days later in hospital, and he was in hospital at this time. Shook my hand, firm handshake all the way till the end. And he said, "Good luck with the beer, Bloke beer." And just, it meant so much to him. So to get that on a jersey, especially Australia, that'd be sick. What's your favourite Origin moment? I'm gonna have to say the go dozer from Cam Smith when he got that intercept.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I I was so privileged to be able to see Smithy the next day, have a show with him the next day. At the time, I'm pretty sure our show was on a Thursday. And just that moment, like hearing Cam Smith, the greatest ever player, or at the very least the greatest ever Queenslander, or one of, to say go dozer, and also to clinch the game like that, just what a moment as a Queenslander. Like the reason why it's probably shock to you, imagine the reverse. Imagine Teddy's moment where he takes an intercept to win the game or sink it, and Joey says, "Go Teddy," or something.
Well, it's funny you say that, because my favourite Origin moment is 2019, because I was standing next to Freddie. There's a photo of like me going like this, and Freddie's like going to the crowd, and I'm like next to him, and it was the most real moment. But back to Go Dozer, I'll never forget, because we had captain's run the next day in Brisbane, and I know you're the same. I get mad anxiety about early flights. Because I don't know, I hate it.
Yeah.
And I was like, after the game, I was devastated we lost. And because the captain's run starts at 9, I have to get the 6 o'clock flight, take all the shit up. And I was like, I cannot miss this flight. Like this is going to be hectic. Like Cam Smith the next day. And yeah, I remember I got up, I was so relieved. And even though we lost, it was pretty hectic.
Yeah, sit in the room with
Cam Smith.
Yeah. And just that moment, I remember watching the Munster moment where he kicked it twice or whatever, just going, what just happened? What did we... Like, that shouldn't happen in Origin. Like, tell me a play that arsey. It's not arsey because he did it.
Was that... That wasn't that year, was it?
No, that was 2020.
Yeah.
2020, where he just went bang, 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 kick, got the ball in the next swing, kick again, try. Like, tell me another play that's ever happened like that from an individual. Like, you've got Joey 2005, the game is obviously goes all the time with the inside ball, probably the kick to Minicello that hit the post. But we're talking about multiple kicks from Munster, play after play. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The 2021 series gets a run because even though it's not a great Origin moment, it's because Blues won by so much. And sometimes me and my friends, like we're going away this weekend, and sometimes, you know, when you've had a long session on the beers, the best way to finish the night is just like to put one of those games on.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was last year over Easter, we put the game on and we started watching it because like Blues won by 50. So like, let's just watch this whole game. And a couple of the girls came in and they thought it was live.
Oh, no way.
They thought we were watching State of Origin. I was like, oh, no, we wish.
That's funny. It's live. You should have gone along with it.
I know,
yeah,
I know.
it's live, yeah. I'll never forget that series. For some reason, I don't know why you New South Welshmen just like, it's like you erase good series from your head. Like, Latrell and Turbo were unbelievable in that series. And he's just like, no one ever talks about
It's
it.
crazy.
I don't get, like, that's what's so bizarre. It's like, if that was two Queenslanders that did that, you'd never hear the end of it.
Exactly right. Yeah.
But the Blues, like, they just don't talk about it. Like, we always talk about Tommy Turbo in Perth with his 3 tries. But this 2021 series, it's like it's erased from your memories. It was the biggest margin win in the history of the Origin series.
And I'm pretty sure we kept you at 0 at Suncorp in game 2.
You won all 3 games in Queensland.
Oh, no, we lost game 3.
Oh, sorry, apologies. Yeah, you lost game 3. Maybe because you didn't whitewash and you
Maybe,
should have.
yeah. Maybe.
I don't know, but it's forgotten 2021. You absolutely obliterated us. And at that stage, Freddie Fittler was 3 from 4.
He was 3 from 4 after that series.
And it's just like, yeah, out.
We eat our own down here.
Oh, man. And don't appreciate it. Like, mate, go back and watch Latrell in that series. He was my man of the series.
He was mine as well. It was like, I'm not upset with Turbo, but they were
He
1 and 2.
dominated every game, Trell.
Yeah.
Whereas Turbo was a little bit quiet in game 3.
Yeah. And I think
Teddy was gunning.
Teddy was the rounds up the 3-2-1.
Okay. Use code DMP. Good day. In daylights, guys. Go to begoodhealth.com.au. Make sure you have a good day. I had my good day this morning. It's the best way to start your day. You can pair it with a subscription. And yeah, also don't forget, we've got 30% off Grumpy Coffee. And you can also subscribe. You can subscribe to Grumpy Coffee. That's the best. Honestly, just do it. Like, I have subscribed to Be Good Health, and I've obviously already subscribed to Grumpy Coffee. And it is so good, never having to think about it again. Like, one thing in my brain I just don't have to think about because the good day rocks up every single week. And it's the same with Grumpy Coffee. Sorry, everything a month. Same with coffee. Just rocks up. You never have to worry about your coffee running out again. Okay, top 3 dinosaurs. I should know this because my son loves dinosaurs and he calls them dinodors. Spinosaurus he loves. T-Rex. He always says T-Rex. And he says Spinosaurus T-Rex. So all big one word. So that's my 3 favorite. The T-Rex, the Spinosaurus by itself, and then Spinosaurus T-Rex. What player did you connect best on your time, New Zealand Warriors, and why? Please and thank you. Who did I connect the best with over there? I mean, initially I got along really well with Louis Brown. I'll never forget Louis Brown when we first rocked over there, sitting in his car listening to 808 and Heartbreak's Kanye West. And he went on to, obviously not mirror Kanye in some of the shit he said, but be heavily into fashion as well. Who did I get along with there? Look, I really liked Rapati. Manu was so nice. I had Joel Moon over there, who I already knew. Tatey was a legend. Pricey was a legend. Yeah. Who do you see winning the World Cup next year? I think Australia. I think Australia, but I tell you what, this Samoa side, if you get Haas, Tino, May and all that all together, that forward pack, you just probably need maybe Lua to have another incredible series. Critter is older, more experienced. To'o, Tungo.
I reckon there's enough in that Samoa team.
Jesus Christ. And then you go Tonga, far out with Katoa there. So it's going to be, you know what I will say? I think it might be the best World Cup we've ever had.
Oh, has to be.
Has to be. What colour is your toothbrush? Black. What do you think? What do you think will be the Origin halves? Who do you think Origin halves in 5 years? For Queensland, 5 years. Well, Dearden will probably still be around there.
Yeah, he's only 24, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Sam Walker, Mam potentially. Dearden Walker, Dearden Mam, probably those two. I'm not sure. Who is the strongest, fittest, toughest player you have seen? Strongest, fittest. Sean Berrigan was always super, super strong in the gym. So Barrow he was always up there. Trying to think, strongest, fittest. Darren Lockyer was always super fit, and way before we had all this like internet knowledge about you've got to stay on top of things, you got to train. He was just doing it. He would just rock up and just be one of the fittest in the whole squad. Who would win a Royal Rumble between all the lads on the Fox League panel and commentators? Okay, I mean, Big Mal in his heyday. He's wrist
I
on
reckon
everyone.
he probably still could. Big Mal.
Big Mal, he's wrist on. Like Mal in his heyday, he is wrist on anyone on that Fox League. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Big Mal. If GI worked for him, probably GI, but Big Mal, I'm going.
I reckon. I don't reckon he'll win, but I reckon Mick Ennis will fight dirty.
He's find a way to get a win.
Yeah.
The big McInnes. Okay. Aidan Gascon. Would you ever do a gaming live stream of the new rugby league game? A cool idea. Would be playing against NRL players or Hello Sport boys. I will say, like, I'm an actual gamer. So, like, rugby league to me is like the rugby league live and that. Like, even sports games in general, I'm actually gaming on proper. Like, I'm not saying it's not a proper game, but like these are like low budget kind of games. It's not really that interesting to me.
See, I'm the opposite. So I'm not a gamer at all.
Yeah.
But sometimes I reckon once in a blue moon, I'll buy something that interests me as long as I can get it cheap.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll get this one full price. But like the other day, I said on Pack Up Boys a lot, I've just gotten back into WWE wrestling. So I bought WWE 2K24, because not the 25, because it was like pre-owned, thinking, oh yeah, I'll play this a couple times. I've been addicted to it.
No way.
So I'm not a gamer. So I kind of enjoy those kind of
Whereas
weird ones.
with me, because I'm a gamer, like there are so many substantially better games than that. So yeah, I've never really got into Rugby League Live. I played Rugby 08, I think, ages ago with Darius. We'd play quite a lot, but it's never been my favorite. Like back then, you know, he'd always want to play Rugby 08. I'd be playing World of Warcraft because I just, okay. Justin Zellers, was the 2008 semi-final loss to Melbourne the biggest heartache of your career? With the way it ended, could the Broncos have knocked off Manly in the grand final that year if they got past the Sharks the following week? Yeah, absolutely the biggest heartbreak. Just because, like, we had that game under control. We had that, like, we were, for most of the game, the better side. And then we had an error right at the end, short numbers. Hodges goes dummies to jam in, so I follow in him. I jam in, and then I realise he's dummying, so I stop and fall over. They had a bunch of numbers anyway. And it's just like, if we didn't drop the ball, we win that game. And I do think we could have taken Manly on. Our team, when you go back and look at that team, you got to remember, the Storm were missing Cam Smith. That
in the grand final.
In the grand final. And they went on to towel the Sharks up, I'm pretty sure. Whoever played the Sharkies. And so I actually think we would have given them a really, really good run. It's definitely, Broncos fans will tell you, it's one of the biggest what-if moments, you know, outside of the grand final performances, maybe in the history of the club, because we genuinely could have taken them to Manly that year. I
remember that game. I watched it. I was going for, no offense, I was going for Melbourne because everyone hates the Broncos, and Melbourne were just like starting to get good then, so they weren't who they are now. But I remember that game because I remember seeing Lockyer at the end, like the emotion on his face, and he usually didn't really
I
show
remember
it.
looking across and seeing him like that.
And then I went to the game the next week. I was at the Sharks Storm game, and they won 28-0. They towed them up.
It truly is one of the like a real crossroads moment for the club, because we didn't get back into a grand final since in 2015. We'd have towed the Sharkies up, and we would have really, like, our team was fucking stacked. So there's like our fullback was Kay, me and Darius on the wings. I think Darius had moved to a centre, Hodjo on the other centre.
Joel Moon was your centre that game. So Darius was wing, you were wing.
So Hodjo was my centre that game.
So Hodges and Moon were the centres.
Forwards were
Lockyer Wallace. I'll just read it out. Lockyer and Peter Wallace, and then the forwards Ben Hannett and Joel Clinton was the front row. McInnes at 9. I always forget he played for the Broncos. This back row: Corey Parker, Sam Thaiday, Tony Carroll, and then the bench: David Stagg, Ashton Sims, Greg Eastwood, Nick Kenny.
Bruh, good side, good team. Okay, as a Gold Coast man yourself, what do the Titans need to be successful and not just a Blue Moon finals appearance? Mate, I think they need a complete overhaul from top to bottom of the club. I think that they need to just be willing to almost win spoons to be able to rebuild everything. They've got enough talent in their juniors. They just don't have a hard edge, and they've never had a hard edge. And I just think that from top to bottom, they got to start having standards in every part of the department, almost similar to what the Storm have done, where when you come to this club, you are not coming for the lifestyle. You are not coming because Gold Coast. If I ever hear in a meeting a recruiting officer saying Gold Coast is a beautiful place to live, I'd almost go as far as like, that's your first warning. That comes out again, you're gone. I just think we can no longer use that as a recruitment tool to the club, that Gold Coast is a beautiful place to live. It should be like, you're coming here to win comps. That's it. Or at the very least, you're coming here to be a ruthless winner. And I just don't think that the club has that. I think too many people subconsciously when they come to the club, it's like beautiful place to live. My family's going to have a nice life. Like when you go down to Melbourne, you are not thinking that. You are not thinking about how beautiful it is to live in Melbourne. You're thinking this is going to be hell, but I'm going to be the best version of myself. That's what I think is, and that's easy to say, easier said than done. But yeah. Should Broncos pull their interest in re-signing Cobbo in order to rebalance the cap? Perhaps a back rower. I think to be honest, I think they're already doing that. I think they've offered Cobbo like really, really low. I don't think they're going to be able to keep him.
I heard Donaghy on last night say that they had a meeting yesterday and they were worlds away from each other.
Yeah, worlds away from each other, which is understandable. It's what it should be, and they absolutely need to put some money into the back row, in my opinion. And just rebalance the cap. Like key players in key positions get the money. And also just no longer accept, if you're getting a lot of money, you can't have one good game, one bad game. You need to be good every week, or at least solid every week. Are Wars legitimate premiership shows? I think so. Like, if Metcalf can go to he is playing good now, but I still think there's a lot of improvement in Metcalf. If he can hit like a peak form heading into finals, you just don't know. Don't know. So I think so.
I think they are, especially because the top, we talk about the congested ladder, but the top four have broken away and they're in the thick of that at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your thoughts on Walsh going to the fullback? KP 14? No, I don't like KP at 14, and Walsh is still injured. There's no way you can
KP at 14 last year just didn't work.
Nah. What did it feel like to run along some of the great Broncos players? Yeah, bro, just so privileged. When you're in it, you don't appreciate it because they're just mates. They're the boys. It's not till you leave you go, I can't believe I actually got to play with these people. Alrighty, guys, this Q&A is brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. Right now, Grumpy Coffee is 30% off everything, and that sale ends this Friday. I didn't say anything yesterday on Monday because that's our biggest show, and if everything sells out, you don't get it. I said it today. It's for our diehards, so make sure, get in there. The sale ends this Friday. It is 30% off all of our products. I think it's the biggest ever sale we've done with Grumpy Coffee. We've got pods, whole bean, grounded, all. Once you go Grumpy Coffee, you will not go back. Make sure to get in before we sell out, guys. It ends this Friday. Who do you drop for Ben Hunt when he returns and why? I think he goes to 9. I know on the Monday show, I think it was Timmy that was quite critical of Ezra Mann in defence. I tend to disagree. Yes, he has some bad reads or whatever, but I actually think our right edge is our bigger concern than our left edge. Dogs play their last 5 rounds versus Warriors, Roosters, Storm, Panthers, Sharks. We've heard about runs being too easy and not get great prep for semi-finals football, but can it also be the other way? Can run homes just be too tough heading into games? I think so, yeah, for sure. That's a crazy tough run home. It really it doesn't get tougher. It doesn't get tougher than that. But I've got faith that the Bulldogs will be able to handle it. And also there's things you can do behind the scenes to be able to handle as well in regards to managing people loads. Do you think they should introduce the bonus point system like they do in Super Rugby? Kind of getting boring seeing the same teams in the finals every year. I'm a Penrith supporter, by the way. It would definitely help the teams that always find themselves at the bottom of the ladder and would encourage teams to play full 80. Might even stop fans from walking out of the stadium early. I actually think the Penrith Panthers winning so many finals has made people think that the same teams are in grand finals all the time. The same team win the comp every time. But when you actually go to the decade before that, so you go back to, obviously, Penrith 21, Storm, then 19 was Roosters, 18 was Roosters again. So that was the first back-to-back. 17 was Sharks.
Cowboys?
17 was
Storm against Cowboys, yeah.
Against Cowboys. 16 was Sharks. 15 was Cowboys. 14 was South. 13 was Roosters. 12 was Storm. 11 was
Manly.
You know what I mean? That's all different sides.
Yeah.
And so I just think
Roosters were the first team to go back-to-back since Brisbane in the early 90s.
Yeah, and also you could make the argument that Melbourne Storm and Roosters are always in the top 8 or whatever. But outside of that, look how far Broncos have fallen. Look how far Manly have fallen.
Well, look at the 2022 prelims. It was Panthers versus South and Cowboys versus Eels. The next year, Cowboys, South and Eels all missed the finals.
Yeah, so I just think the fact that Penrith have won 4 comps in a row, that we just assume that it's always the same, but it's actually not over the last 20 years. It's actually not. What I do think, though, and I've spoken about this a lot, is that I would like a wild card so that at the end of the year, if you're a bottom 8 side, imagine how friggin' fun it would be to ride home like a wild card entry into a final series. I just think it would be just keep you engaged. Whereas like right now, if there's bottom 8 sides that are just like the season's already over, and we're around 16. Shouldn't be like that.
Yeah,
shouldn't be like that. Do you think Fitzy keeps his job? If these Sharks continue this trend? Yeah, absolutely, bro. The problem is not Fitzy. To take a small club like that to top 5 finishes, I think top 6 is the worst, or top 5 or 6 every single year. They went a game longer last year, so they were in a prelim last year. Actually fought pretty hard against the Penrith Panthers. Mate, put it this way. I always ask myself, if Fitzy was on the open market, how many clubs do you reckon would take him like that?
Oh, like that. Easy.
Boom. Easy.
Yeah.
So, no, Fitzy is absolutely not under pressure. Can you start a campaign hard for the long overdue Super League Wars doco, please? Yeah, fair enough. Don't forget, guys, Code Sports, discounted subscription for Bloke listeners. Go to codesports.com.au/bloke and enter the redemption code Bloke, and you'll get a discount for the entire year. It's only $49, which works out to be about $4 per month. Use code Bloke. And also, it's not got this discount. I think it's going to be going soon. And as well, the more people that use Bloke codes, the more chances we have of a long-term partnership, which would be really, really important for the podcast, because those long-term partnerships help pay the bills. Who are your top 5 fastest NRL players in your opinion you played with or against? Man, I think right now there's actually a dearth of like actual sprinters. I think top 5, I just think James Roberts has got to be up there. You've got guys like right now, Hammer, guys like Saab, Cooler, Savage. Like these guys are all actual sprinters, actually won state and stuff like that. So
I think Corabetti used to be a sprinter, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he was this quick though. I don't think he was as quick as these boys. Like these guys are state champions, like actual state champions. Any players you played against that you remember for hitting you hard or being hard to tackle? I think he's Langi Setu is his name. He used to hit hard. He was at the Broncos for a bit. But when I was at the Warriors, he used to hit Langi Setu. I'm pretty sure Greg Eastwood used to whack blokes, Greg Eastwood. Tony Carroll, obviously. Those boys. Who was your favourite roomie on away games and why? Troy Darves, just because we lived together. So that's essentially been a roomie. Golden point or golden try? I'm a big believer in golden try. I know some people like the golden point, but I just don't understand as a game, and this is me coming from outside in, but like as a game, at the peak of the game, we change the way we play and the way we finish a game by doing field goals. In no other part of the game do we ever line up for field goals other than like the last set of something or whatever. And it makes no sense. Like you could take field goals out of rugby league and it really wouldn't change the game that much. And so as a guy coming in a bit older, it's almost like going into soccer and then it gets to extra time and you go from like scoring goals to, I don't know, whoever gets the most corners or something wins the game. That's what it's so like. Conversions or field goals are not a big part of rugby league, and yet they define the best part of it. So I'm a big believer in golden try, and maybe like golden try where you drop a few players off or something like that. I know maybe that would fatigue people. I'm not sure, but I'm a big believer in golden try.
Like you can still kick a field goal on a golden try. Like if the 10 minutes comes up and you've won, you've won. I just think, and look, South just lost in golden point, so maybe I'm seeming salty here, but like South defended their ass off for the entire game. That last try that Farlongo scored, which they shouldn't have let go, but there was a bullshit penalty before. Like South didn't deserve to lose like that, like a field goal at the end of the game.
Yeah, I don't. Never been a big fan of the field goal ending the game. Just the whole, like, it's so bizarre. The whole style of rugby league changes. Like, you are no longer trying to score tries. Literally, you are just trying to get to a point on the field. You don't play like all the 80 minutes before that. You don't play like that. Yeah. It's strange, very strange. But it's, look, to be honest, it's not a huge pet peeve. I still find golden point interesting.
Oh, it's exciting.
Have you ever fully recovered from 2023 grand final loss? Yeah, I have. Took some time. Definitely took some time because you just like the what ifs, like just had not made that error, not throwing that ball out the back, all that stuff. Have you? Would you ever consider giving coaching a go? Absolutely not. Who plays 6 for the Eels next year? Yeah, that's a tough one. Apparently they've got this young guy coming through the grade that's a gun, but we'll wait and see. As a winger, did you ever have a chirp at the touchy, or did the touchy ever take a dig at you? I was always a very passionate player where if I feel I haven't made an error, I would be like, ref, are you serious? But I wasn't a chirpy player. Like that's part of my personality. I'm very much I don't like injustice. I don't like something like I will complain if I didn't rake the ball or I didn't knock it on or whatever. But if I did, I'm very accountable and be like, yep, no, I dropped it. I'm not going to fake it. With the rise of Tonga and Samoa, do you believe other countries like PNG can rise too? Yeah, absolutely, bro. Far out. Go look at PNG's under 20 side or whatever, or not even under 20, schoolboy side that nearly beat or did beat Australian side or nearly beat.
I think they drew.
Drew? Maybe drew. Yeah, go look at that. Like, mate, one thing is with this PNG inside, like the PNG, it's going to be tough. Like one of the toughest things the rugby league has ever done, NRL's ever done. But surely the dream is that in a decade's time, it essentially is just the PNG side with no Australians in it. Like, don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against Aussies being in there or Samoa or Tongans or whatever. But I think most people would say if it's called PNG Hunters or whatever you want to call it, you would want it to essentially be the PNG side, just like you would want the Kiwi side to probably be the Kiwi side. I guess we'll see that. We'll see. Alrighty, that's the Q&A done and doosted. Don't forget, Grumpy Coffee, 30% off everything. It ends this Friday. Use your code BLOKE with codesports.com.au/bloke. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, anything else, mate? Anything else going on?
Not really.
Trying to think. Yeah, captain's run tomorrow.
Just business as usual, really.
Business as usual. A draw on the Mazda BT50 over the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. Join the Bloke Club. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. As usual, I'll go and fuck myself. Thank you.